Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Junior's Corner. Today, we are starting an interesting new series here about Highway 35, possibly one of the longest series in Hot Wheels history. I say longest, so by that I mean sort of 35 cars all released in 1 year. Actually, it's probably more than 35 technically in the series, but we'll get to that at the end of the series. Um, yeah, so this sparked off a huge sort of generational thing afterwards with a series called Accelerators following it, and then Battle Force 5 after that, the sort of spiritual successor. It has a TV series, its own sort of canon, and it was all for, naturally, based on the name, the 35th anniversary of Hot Wheels, I think in 2003. For a little bit of context, the series involved 5 teams of 7 drivers apiece doing a big old race through a bunch of realms, legs of a large race to attain something called the Wheel of Power. That's effectively the plot. There's a bit more nuance to that. If you want to learn more about it, I recommend watching the cartoon movie. It was actually quite an interesting little thing. Um, it features different colors of track and things like that, and a lot of interesting elements. It's an interesting sort of, I guess, a little bit of nostalgia, and it was actually a relatively decent project for its time. It wasn't necessarily the best animated thing in the world, but it got better over time. Again, product of its time. But here we have the Wave Rippers team led by Vert Wheeler, always in this set. The first car out of them all, they're all numbered, is the leader, which makes sense, but just stating it. So we have the Diora 2 being our leader, a very recognizable car. This one actually had at one point a full-scale model. Well, I think the model predates the full-scale version working replica. Wasn't specifically Highway 35 related, but it then later got relivered to be Highway 35. I don't know if they have they may have multiple Diora 2s. Hot Wheels HQ. This later gets a special version, which we'll get to in a later video. But it is a very nice thing. It normally comes with 2 boards in the back, but, well, these all should come with surfboards, but being a product from 2003 and being something where you can remove the surfboards for whatever reason, yeah, the surfboards are all missing. This isn't the one I had when I was a child. I had this one of the first one I had as a kid, but this isn't the one I had. I recently replaced it with this one, which is in a bit better condition. The livery's in a bit better condition. The wheels are in a bit better condition. Still no boards, though, but it's less chipped, and the screen is quite frosted. I don't remember it always being that frosted. I think that's just age, perhaps, but it's a very nice model. I think these are all I think they're mostly metal with enamel paint on them, but each team has a specific wheel color and this logo here, and yeah, these were, I think, slightly above mainline price point when they were first released. I can't actually remember the exact things. It was so long ago, and they also had special packs for them. Again, we'll get into that sort of in the end of series wrap up. This is Switchback, I think a Hot Wheels model they don't make anymore. I'm not exactly sure what actual car it's based off of, what actual truck it's based off of, but it is a very nice model. It does give me sort of Ford, maybe Chevy vibes, maybe sort of a bit of both. But again, no boards, but the same kind of color scheme is there. And here's the back end. Trying to be careful. This one, I think, was one I had ever since I was a kid, so it's not in the best condition, but it's not in terrible condition either. This is Backdraft. Again, it would have a surfboard sticking out the back. I think another one that they don't make anymore, possibly because of the surfboard issue. With the Dior 2, they eventually made it so the mold contained the surfboards just on them, so you can't remove them. It kind of looks a bit weird, but it was a way of sort of getting around the problem. But yeah, they have a very sort of ocean-y color scheme, so lots of blues, silvers, and occasionally black. Yeah. Not sure what vehicle this exactly is based off of, but it's kind of cool. We have one of the first real cars in the series, the Nomad. I think the Chevy Nomad. Which originally I think had a Redline print way, way back. Had like a Redline style version, so it was later end of Redlines. In the show, this is actually one of the I think few female drivers in the actual show. But there's I think like basically one or so per team. So they got the representation in sort of, if that can be argued. But this is a really nice car. I think I prefer like the real cars now because in games like Forza, etc., you can do the livery a lot more honestly because you're not trying to retrofit a fantasy car's livery onto an actual car that's as similar as possible. You have the actual car to show for it. Then we have Power Pipes, one of the weirder sort of fantasy models. The chrome on this is almost entirely gone, but these would have originally been chrome. Perhaps one of the few cars to feature sort of purple in this team as its sort of cockpit kind of thing. Sort of a one drive car, one seater, single seater. So the fast one of the group, you might say, although they're all supposed to be fast. So good in a straight line and not much else. I think they use this particular model because the fins kind of remind you of the fins of a surfboard, perhaps, or perhaps the fins of a shark, or I don't know, the fins of a wave, perhaps, like waves. The Chrysler Thunderbolt is perhaps one of the most expensive cars in this particular team. I didn't pay a lot for this because I found one at a car boot sale, but on eBay they're like £60 plus, 90 sealed sometimes. The rare one of the set, the particular team, the Chase, which is odd because it doesn't really get much screen time, or even in the collectible comics you get for them, doesn't really have much. Doesn't really get seen much, but it is a very nice car. And I think that might be one of I think it's one of 3 production prints of the Chrysler Thunderbolt the Hot Wheels ever did. Yeah, it was not popular. This is one of those sort of okay, it's 2003. We can't have just all red lines and classics and interesting cars. You know, we've got to actually have something from today to show for it as part of the 35th anniversary. And then finally we have the Stingray, the Corvette Stingray, again, another real car. Very nice model, just in general, and a very nice paint job. This one did get a lot of screen time because it was driven by Marky Wilde, who was kind of the brother of one of the other characters in the show, who was a bit timid and a bit not sure of himself, but he appears in the later series and kind of takes on a rebellious kind of, almost Shadow the Hedgehog kind of attitude, and to heck with you, so to speak. But yeah, it's a very interesting team. We'll get into the lore things more as the series goes on, but it's a very nice cohesive team color. We'll see later on less cohesion amongst some of the other teams. But this is very cohesive and very calm, very interesting, very sort of surfer orientated, and just very fun, to be honest. And this is sort of the trend you'll see going forward, sort of trying to balance the fantasy cars and the actual real models to go with it, which comes into a problem which we'll talk about in a future episode. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know if you were a Highway 35 fan person as a youth. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Tune in soon for team number 2.